Hello and welcome to another episode of our Brothers Creed podcast, where we talk about motivation, experiences, and we explore the world around us. We're the Thomas Brothers, and I'm Jared.
And I'm Ethan, and today we're going to be talking about intelligence. This is a segment that we do where we talk about attributes or maybe specific skill sets that we think are beneficial. And today's attribute is intelligence. I think this is a very important attribute or characteristic that I would say a person with a strong creed would need to have.
Exactly.
Now, intelligence isn't always book smarts. I think there's some street smarts in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna explain a little bit about it, factors of it, what influences it, how to become more intelligent, how to use that intelligence. So let's dive into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information.
And that, my friends, is called integrity. That's called courage. Now that's the stuff leaders should be made of.
Either you're somebody or you're nobody.
You're not the devil. You're practice.
So intelligence is such an interesting thing. There's so many facets to intelligence. One of the things I want to talk about is that there's some of the many different types of intelligence. But just as a basic overall definition, I found this one that I liked. It says human intelligence is a mental quality that consists of the abilities to learn from experience, adapt to new situations, understand and handle abstract concepts, and use knowledge to manipulate one's environment. So I think that's pretty interesting. One of those things about I think even animals can manipulate the environments around them, but adapt to new situation. Even animals can do that. But like this ability to understand abstract concepts and then do those other things to a greater extent is what makes human intelligence so great. So that's one of the first ones I wanted to start with, is that definition. What do you think, Ethan?
Yeah, well, you think so too. You said there's even animals that do that. You think of there's some primates that they use tools,
Mm-hmm.
right, to hunt or whatever else it might be. That's kind of like learning something. Well, the definition that I put together for intelligence is it can be defined as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. And so this includes problem solving, critical thinking, the ability to adapt to new situations. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important for quite a few reasons. Kind of on a practical level, it can help us to perform well in school, to excel in your career, to make informed decisions, and maybe on a personal level, it can drive self-confidence. It can help you to be more aware of your surroundings. There's lots of different things. So I dug into some of the factors of intelligence.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of interesting thinking about intelligence. Well, why are some people more intelligent than others? Is it, because someone has a bigger brain and so they're just genetically able to store more information? Maybe there's some people that have photographic memories and they're so much more intelligent than everybody else. And so really kind of broke it down into 4 main sections. One, and these are the different things that help to determine your intelligence or to formulate your intelligence. So first one is genetics. Research suggests that intelligence can be influenced by inherited genetic factors. So a lot of times, people that have parents that have the capacity of extreme learning and whatever else it might be, there's a certain genetic factor to that. So genetics can play a part in it. Secondly is environment. a person's environment, including the quality of the education they have access to, the access to learning resources, exposure to stimulating experiences can also play into roles of experience.
Remember when we talked about child geniuses? I remember when I talked about Mozart and how his dad really helped him go on road shows, and really he was an artist himself, and he taught him, and that's dude, you've got to have the right environment. If he had never had a piano in his house, then perhaps, and his dad never taught him or never tried anything with him, then perhaps we wouldn't have the great Mozart music that we have.
Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent too, you think of there are certain situations where there's, kids in high school that can't read.
Yeah, there are a lot.
And that is extremely unfortunate. I mean, that's high school and they can't even read.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my 6-year-old can read.
And the school system just keeps pushing them through.
Yeah. And I think environment has a lot to play with that. I think environment, like the at-home environment, I don't think that's all a failure of, teachers aren't teaching. I think that a lot of that's a failure on the parents' part. Just what I couldn't imagine trying to learn in an environment where you're constantly on the defense and feeling like you're potentially going to, get physically threatened or whatever it might be. So environment is plays a large factor on someone's intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Next is health and nutrition. Poor health and nutrition can affect a person's cognitive development over a period of time and influence their overall intelligence. You think of the simple adage of, brain food or whatever else, or even just a lot of people are exposed to sicknesses that are debilitating, and they, I don't know, lose their eyesight, or I think that might be a dumb example, but their health and nutrition definitely plays a part in.
I think some of that definitely is causal, but I think some of it is just also correlated with it. So if someone is seriously undisciplined in what they're eating, then they're just eating junk food all the time. They don't care what they're putting in their mouth. Then they're probably not very disciplined in pursuing knowledge and education and learning. So those might go hand in hand. Although that if someone's not getting the right proper nutrients and things like that, they're also not going to develop normally.
Yeah, definitely. The last one here is which kind of actually relates to health and nutrition too, but specifically was substance abuse. Substance abuse can have a major negative effect on the brain's function and cognition, which can impact intelligence. It's really interesting. I was flipping through TikTok the other day, and there's this TikTok channel where this guy basically just goes around and he talks with people that are homeless and living on the streets.
Yeah.
And it is really crazy because I would say probably 90% of the people that he's talking to have years and years of substance abuse and heroin and all this kind of stuff, and they are just gone. I mean, it's like talking to a brick wall almost. I mean, and the guy wasn't doing it to exploit these people. Yeah, he's trying to bring awareness. Yeah, and I think he too at one point was homeless during his life. And so it's just really crazy, just like the effect that substance abuse has on your cognitive ability, just your brain. And I've even heard stories and seen things about people that have kind of basically gone down that substance abuse path just really heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come back, you're just not the same person.
Yeah.
You just don't have the same cognitive ability and intelligence that you had before.
I know a guy in high school, well, a little earlier than that. He had a photographic memory, man. He could just read something. He was like, I never studied for tests. He could just read something and know it. But he got mixed up in drugs and stuff, and I mean, it really messed him up, man. And I don't know, I don't keep in touch with him now, but I think he dropped out of school and just really had a really hard life. And I feel like, oh man, he had so much potential, because he had this photographic memory that he could just remember everything, and like it's almost like he was given a superpower, then he just squandered it.
Yeah.
But he was kind of living in a broken home, and all those difficulties. But so it may not have been totally his fault, being raised in that environment. But just feel kind of sad to see that that talent go to.
Yeah. Well, what's the saying? You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah, I guess so. So that's interesting. Did you have anything else on those, or was that the last one?
No. Those are kind of the ones before the next section.
So I think that's really good about just intelligence, like generally. I was looking at, I was like, man, there's so many types of intelligences. I was like looking for maybe if anybody had articulated a theory on this, and I've actually found one that was developed at Harvard University psychological department by a guy named Howard Gardner in 1983. So his theory suggests that people can be intelligent in a variety of different ways. So I'm going to kind of walk through. There was 8 ways that people can be intelligent, and then later and I was like, what the heck? He's missing one, and then he actually later added it in the early 2000s. So I'll ask you at the end if you can think of any that are missing, and you see if you can guess the missing one. So the first one,
see if I'm intelligent enough to guess.
Yeah, exactly. And as I went through these, I'm like, man, honestly, the podcast, just doing this podcast and the things we talk about, has helped me increase every single one of these. And so I think it's pretty cool. And I'm like, the podcast is truly making me more intelligent. And I would imagine our viewers as well, our listeners as well, because if you're listening to what we're doing, you're being exposed and exploring new things that will make you more intelligent. So this is a proof of that. So the first one is spatial intelligence. So this is kind of visual, spatial judgments. These are the strengths of this attribute. Some of the characteristics are you draw for fun, you're good at puzzles, you recognize patterns, and you interpret visuals as well. So for me, putting together some of our Facebook, Instagram covers, the
design stuff.
Episode designs, like that has been something that I've done with the podcast that's really helped me kind of develop this spatial intelligence. So there's bodily kinesthetic. Oh, I can't even say that. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence. And that is, some of the strengths of that are just physical movements, more control. This is stuff like being skilled at sports, being skilled at coordination, remembers by doing instead of hearing or seeing. So you can remember by doing things. So I actually feel like I've grown in this because I started doing jiu-jitsu. And I mean, heck, some of the exercises that we do are like, hey, close your eyes and roll with somebody. And you're actually just trying to feel that person's movements. You're trying to feel when they're off balance and not necessarily looking at them. So that's kind of a interesting way to roll sometimes. It also can be a good way to get poked in the eye or punch in the face or just hit in the face on accident. But
they're not going to poke you in the eye because your eyes are closed.
Yeah, but they can still poke your eye. So musical intelligence is next. And I was like, oh, yeah. I feel like, when I did that Mozart episode, or about child geniuses, I feel like I really grew an appreciation for that, which I've always, appreciated orchestra. I played the violin when I was younger, but a strength of this is appreciating rhythms and music. A characteristic of this strength is a appreciation for music, things in sound and patterns, rich understanding of musical structure and notes. Putting together these intros, outros, putting together the audio for the podcast, I feel like I've really grown in this area. And, especially with the intros, when I'm listening and I'm like, okay, I want to get a good beat drop on this. And then so the intros, and Ethan, even you were like, oh, I like this, but it needs a little bit of a better beginning here. It doesn't quite sound right. And so we both have been working on that. Linguistic intelligence, words, language, writing are the strengths for this one. So characteristics were enjoys writing, reading, good at public speaking. We literally just had an episode about public speaking. Very persuasive and can explain things well. That's one thing I think I've gotten better at, is explaining things well as cutting out ums and ahs and some of those filler words.
In post or while you're saying it?
Well, sometimes in post, but also I'm trying to do it while I'm saying it. So there's always that. Also, I don't know if you've done the exercise with your wife yet that Brendan suggested, but
The staring at each other's eyes.
yeah, try that one. That will help your linguistic intelligence to be comfortable with pauses. The next one is logical or mathematical skills. So this is analyzing problems, mathematical operations. So some of the characteristics here would be fast problem solver, understands complex computation, and likes thinking about abstract ideas. I kind of do this at work as a data analyst, data scientist. So I feel like I'm already kind of expert at that one. No, I'm just kidding. But I am developing that strength and continue to do that. The next one is interpersonal intelligence. Interpersonal, meaning understanding and relating to others. So characteristics here are strong emotional intelligence skills, which I want to talk about later because there's a whole facet of that. I think it's so important. Creating healthy relationships and good at solving conflicts. The next one is intrapersonal intelligence. So this is more like an introspective and self-reflection strength. Some of the characteristics there are understanding one's own strengths and weaknesses, being highly self-aware. We've done an episode on self-awareness, and sensitive to one's own feelings. We've talked about that as well. And then the last one here, the eighth one, is naturalistic intelligence. This one I was a little bit. I've always been pretty strong at this one, I think, but I was a little curious to see this as a strength he identified. This one, strengths were being seeing patterns and relationships to nature. So the characteristics are interested in areas like botany, biology, zoology, appreciation for nature, enjoys activities like camping, gardening, and hiking. So just an appreciation and love for the outdoors. I've always had that, but I didn't think of that as a level of intelligence or like a type of intelligence. So now that I've said all of them, which one do you think is missing here?
Yeah, well, I like all those. If I was a guessing man, which I'm not, or gambling man, but I'd say probably technological intelligence.
That's not it.
Or
That's not it. So I'm trying to think of what
I was gonna say,
or
or social intelligence, but that kind of works with that
personal, yeah,
interpersonal.
Yeah. So
I don't know which one is the ninth one.
So the ninth one that I immediately thought of is I was like, what about spiritual intelligence? You know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then I actually was looking more into his work, and he actually had added an additional one where it was like, he called it existential intelligence, which is sensitivity and capacity to tackle deep questions about human existence, such as what is the meaning of life? Why do we die? How do we get here? So he calls it the existential intelligence. I would call this a spiritual intelligence. Just kind of his is a little bit different than what I would say. Mine, some scientists, Harvard scientists would call it pseudoscience, but my spiritual intelligence would be being in tune with a vibe that's around you. If you walk into someone's house, how do you feel? That kind of intelligence or sense of things. Maybe some call it a sixth sense. I say that maybe it's like feeling the spirit of something or of someone. Sometimes you can just get a vibe of hey, this is not a place that I should be in, or we need to leave, or maybe even to the point where like I'm getting goosebumps. This is something is off here. I think that humans have that ability, and also the sensitivity just spiritually to receive promptings from God on maybe what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I think that is missed in his academic explanation here. And I think he does a weak attempt at saying, oh, yeah, the existential intelligence, but he ignores the spiritual aspect of humanity.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think those are great examples of the different, I guess, maybe categories of intelligence.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. It's interesting that intelligence is kind of an enigma because intelligence is not fixed. There are many things that you can learn and then forget.
Yes.
And there are also many things that it's never too late to develop intelligence, developing and improving intelligence over time through learning or additional experiences. That means that it's never too late to start working and improving your mental abilities in kind of all these different areas that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different ways to boost your intelligence. And I kind of have a list here of 10 ways that someone can boost or increase their intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll kind of walk through them. One of them is reading regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Pull the Ty Lopez. Here I am, or not Ty Lopez. What's that guy's name? Yes, Ty Lopez.
This is my bookshelf. Oh,
with my Lamborghinis. Oh, the Lamborghinis and my Ferraris, and these don't mean anything. The most important thing in this garage is my bookshelves with thousands of books on them.
I'm here in the library. I own all these books.
Yeah, in this rented house. So reading exposes you to new ideas and information, which can help expand your knowledge and improve your understanding and your critical thinking skills.
Mm-hmm.
So reading. Next one is engaging in challenging mental activities, puzzles, brain teasers, mental challenges can kind of help keep you sharp. It made me think of like the 90-year-old grandma that still pulls out the crossword puzzle from the newspaper every day and does it. It's kind of something that's problem solving, making you think.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is learning a new skill or taking up a new hobby,
mm-hmm.
Something that can challenge and stimulate your brain into improving and learning something new.
Yeah.
Getting enough sleep is very important for memory and brain health and function.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise regularly. It has been shown and proven and studied that there's a positive impact on brain function whenever you exercise and get exercise regularly.
Yeah.
So next is eating healthy and a balanced diet.
Mm-hmm.
A diet, fruits and vegetables, healthy fats that are balanced, especially in children too, whenever they're kind of developing their brain and their brain cells and everything else. If you're, junk in, junk out.
Yep.
Kind of similar to that is staying hydrated, drinking enough water to be able to maintain that overall health.
Yep.
Taking breaks and practicing mindfulness. So this can be anything from meditation to reducing your stress to allowing time to improve your focus and your concentration, and just specifically focusing and practicing mindfulness. Number 9 is learning a new language. That can definitely stretch your memory, your cognitive skills, your understanding. It can help you to learn to pay more attention when you're listening. Definitely a great thing. And last one is just stay curious and always be learning.
Yep.
Never feel like, I've learned all I need to do on that subject, or, I don't have anything else to learn there. There's always something you can learn, always a way you can grow.
Yep, totally. I ran into a guy once. I was working construction. I may have told this before, but it just has stuck in my mind so much. He was like an old guy. When he's probably in his 50s. His hands were basically like leather gloves on his hands because he just been working so hard his whole life, And I was, I didn't know we just were talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and I was like gonna tell him. He's like, I can tell you more about that, and he's like, "No, not interested. I've learned enough stuff in my life. Don't want to learn anymore." He's probably just not wanting to talk to me, but at the time I was like, man, that's the poorest mentality I've ever heard, that you don't want to learn anything more. I was like, no wonder your hands are basically like old leather gloves, because you have no drive to learn anything. And so you've been stuck in this rut your whole life, working a manual labor job at 50, not making much money. He was like the assistant to the guy that was working. And so anyway, I've always kind of looked at that and thought that was a piss poor attitude to have.
Poor mentality. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, did you have any more, Ethan? I want to talk about emotional intelligence before we signed off.
Yeah,
here.
no, get into it.
So emotional intelligence, I think, is so important. That was one of the aspects of interpersonal intelligence, but I think it's such a huge thing where you can really, I think a lot of guys struggle with being emotionally intelligent. I mean, women struggle with this too, but there's a couple of different aspects that we could focus on to become more emotional intelligence. I'm just going to walk through 5 things here. One is being self-aware. We've had an episode on self-awareness, but being self-aware is about recognizing your own and understanding your own emotions and what you're feeling and why. Also, like I teach my boys, you are in control of your emotions. So if you start feeling something, maybe just consider why I'm feeling that. Is that I say nobody can make you feel anything. That comes from you. And so that's one thing, being self-aware of where those are coming from. The next one is self-regulation. Once you've mastered your emotional awareness, the next step is managing those emotions, particularly the negative ones. How do you deal with this? How do you effectively learn how to calm down? Or, if you're just raging and you're just like going from 0 to 100 and you're just raging on your family, raging on your kids, raging on your wife, it's like, that's low emotional intelligence. You need to learn to calm down and get those negative emotions out in a healthy way, whether that's exercise or whether that's meditation or whether that's, a cold plunge or whatever. But drinking alcohol, doing drugs, pornography, video games, there's so many ways, just binging on Netflix or doom scrolling on TikTok. There's so many ways that we in a modern society try to deal with our emotions by those manners, by those ways, and they're not very healthy at all.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I had a couple more. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
so
ahead.
the next one was motivation, taking responsibility for your drive to improve yourself. We talk about that all the time here on the podcast. The next one is empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to feel how they feel and being aware of others' feelings. When you can do that, that will help your emotional maturity. And then lastly here, this just social skills, being able to deal with people, being able to be a good listener and communicator. That's what makes a great leader, and that will give you that emotional intelligence. So I thought that was very important to cover.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so when I look at, we've defined intelligence. We've talked about what influences our intelligence. We've talked about how to improve our intelligence, different categories of types of intelligence. And kind of towards the end, I wanted to just talk about, intelligence is a very valuable asset, and it can have a major impact on all of our lives, personally and as we interact with each other.
Professionally as well.
Professionally, whether it's personal or professional advancement or simply just your own personal well-being, it is important to cultivate and develop our mental skills and our mental abilities and our mental intelligence. So I had kind of a couple things here at the very end on if we pay attention and we increase our intelligence, what benefits is that going to have in our life? If you implement these intelligence strategies into your creed, how is it going to help improve your life? Lots of different ways, but here's a couple. It'll improve your problem-solving skills. We are faced with problems every single day, whether that's driving in the car or at work or at home. Another thing is it enhances your decision-making abilities, the thousands of decisions that we make every single day. It can increase career opportunities. Employers are looking for intelligent people and people that have the ability to acquire additional intelligence. Also here, better communication skills. That is always a good thing. Kind of goes along with that emotional, what you were saying, Jared, and being able to communicate rather than, just react. And then lastly is improved overall well-being. It will growing your intelligence, even just personally, and your overall well-being gives you a better sense of a capability. It gives you, I would say, better or more self-confidence, builds your self-esteem. You got to be careful maybe with pride, right? But at the same point, it gives you confidence in yourself to grow. And I think that's what we all need to do. I mean, that's what this podcast is about. Building our own personal creeds is growing day after day, growing, becoming better, improving our well-being. And so, I guess if you could boil the podcast down into one word, it might be intelligence, right? Growing intelligence.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that I took out of this experience.
Excellent. Totally agree. Well, this has been a great episode. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Hopefully this will help motivate you to add these things to your creed, and as we all try to build that creed together.
All right, let's do it.